All right, so again, last class we left off with our neck and head, and now we're ready to move on to the arms. And again, like I mentioned previously, I'm just going to demonstrate the one arm, but once you get this process down, it's just a matter of repeating those steps for the other arm. So for my character, I'm going to start here with the, I guess it's Max's right arm. And I wanted to show this one in particular because I didn't plan for this, or I didn't intend for this to happen. But this arm actually has what they refer to as gimbal lock, where our rotations they actually go beyond sort of the 360 degrees, and the arm starts to flip. Now with this one, it's a little more subtle. So if I were to play this back, it's not. I don't think we would necessarily know by looking at it. But my gimbal lock actually happens right around in here when I start making the contacts before the jump itself. And you can kind of tell by the erratic movement in the arm, and it still might be hard to tell. I couldn't really tell until I got it into the graph editor. So before I do anything with this arm, I want to lock the elbow and the wrist so they don't distract me when I'm focusing on just the upper arm. So I'm going to shift select the elbow and the wrist down here, and then over in the channel box, I'm going to right click and hit mute all. And then if we double check those attributes should be kind of tan there for both the wrist and the elbow. And again, what that does is it mutes all the animation on those particular controllers. It doesn't delete the animation, it's still there, it's just muted. And then I'm going to grab the upper arm here, and I'm going to hop into the graph editor. And again, the first thing I do anytime I start cleaning up controllers, I'm going to come in here and grab attributes I know I either didn't animate or have long holds here in value. And so I'm going to go ahead and just delete these because I know I'm not going to animate those attributes. Translate, so this arm controller, I'm really not going to adjust it at all in translation, so I'm just going to grab all these here for X, Y, and Z and delete those as well. And really this arm should only animate in rotation. Now if I grab the curve and start looking at it, it still looks, now the curve is actually pretty rough, but I still can't really tell the flipping that's happening here. It actually happens right around in here where these attributes kind of have extremes where they're opposite to one another, and it should have more of a, they should kind of go in tandem really. Now if you do get gimbal lock, and if yours is more maybe noticeable than mine is, where again your arm does a full 360, or it kind of looks like we're doing, I don't know, like your arm's doing a windmill or something like that, you can actually grab all of your tangents here. And then in the curves menu up here, there's the Euler filter, or it looks like Euler. So if you click this, usually it's really good at detecting any issues you have with gimbal lock in your animation, and it will automatically correct your curves for you. So I would immediately, if you do see gimbal lock, or again your arms doing full 360 degree rotations or moving strangely, I would immediately try this first because 9 times out of 10 it usually works or does the trick. Now with mine, the difference is so small it didn't actually work, so I'm going to have to work a little harder to get this corrected. So I'm going to go ahead and dock this down here. And really, this process is going to be a matter of looking for my key extremes in the arm. So that's going to be anytime my arm fully extends backwards, forwards, and backwards again. So I'm going to look for those key extremes in the arm positions, and I'm just going to re-key those positions, and then I'm going to delete keys that are in between those extremes so I get a smooth transition in the animation. So I know I need this first extreme here. I don't know how extreme I'd call this pose, but this neutral pose here. So I'm going to leave that one alone, and I'm going to look for the next pose, which I think is on frame 10 here. And again, if you're not sure, just refer back to your blocking. So hopefully you created a text document, and we can come back to this if needed. And so those should be your extremes there. And let's see, what does that arm do on 10? It should go backwards. And as I'm doing this, I'm going to look up here in the rotate X, Y, and Z values just to make sure nothing crazy is happening. You really, your arm, if you could kind of think about this in terms of how it's swinging backwards and forwards, it should really only go maybe positive about 90 degrees forward and 90 degrees back. We really shouldn't be in the hundreds. Because then that's when we start doing flips. So that's something else we could watch out for when we're looking at these attributes in the rotation, that we're not seeing any extreme differences in value. So especially if you're going beyond 180, then we're getting kind of crazy. Either that or your arm's really swinging forward, but in these small movements here, I don't think that's the case. So let's see, the next extreme is 29, so let's see what's happening there. Actually, it's 20. So that arm just comes forward there on 20. And I think that's actually where that I think this is where my gimbal lock starts, because you can see the attributes here, they kind of intertwine instead of mimicking each other. So I'm actually going to come to frame 20, and I'm going to zero out these controllers here. Oh, not today, Max. Don't. There we go. And then let's rematch this pose very carefully. And I'm going to ignore the elbow and the wrist. Again, they're not moving because I muted them. And so really I'm just looking at the upper arm for how this needs to be positioned. And I'm going to grab that arm. And I'm going to key select, just those rotations. And then let's see, I'm going to keep going forward to 20. Now my next key on this arm is on 24. But that's not really the extreme in this arm. So if I look at frame 20, that arm is going forward. And on 24, it starts to go back, but it doesn't actually stop until, it looks like about frame 26 is the extreme there. So I'm going to delete any of the keys between frame 20 and 26. And I'm just going to make 26 my extreme for this arm. So what did I say, 20 and 26? Because that just goes straight back there. So I'm going to take these keys here on 25 and delete them. And let's go to 26 here and zero out the attributes. And then I'm going to take this arm down, and it looks like it's going straight back. And let's key select those. And I'm just scrubbing through to see what that transition looks like. So that looks better. All right, now I'm going to look for the next extreme. So again, that's when these arms are going to go from behind here. So the last extreme I found on 26. And we're going to look for the point at which they go completely forwards. So I could probably make my next extreme 39, and I can delete everything between 26 and 39. So let's just go in and do that. I'm going to grab all these keys here in between. So right after 26, let's grab these and delete them. And here we have, actually, I don't even need those on 36. Let's delete those. And we will go straight to 39. And let's see, let's zero these out. And let's reset up that pose. So this needs to come forward and up a little bit. and maybe away from the body here. And then let's go ahead and key these. I'm going to scrub through and make sure that still reads okay. We're getting a nice smooth transition from those extremes. And I think that might be. Now I might come in now and probably on frame 34. Yeah, let's see. Let's actually do frame. Let's do frame 31. So I'm just looking at my poses I set up here. I'm just looking at the arc on this arm, and it doesn't really match what I'm doing. So if I had a front reference or a front camera, it's kind of hard to tell from the side, but those arms don't really swing out away from the body as much as they're doing in my animation here. So I want to correct that. So I'm going to go to that extreme I set up on 31 now, and I'm just going to bring the arm in a little bit closer to the body. And let's key select that. So I'm going to just key select all the rotations. And then on 39, I might actually bring this in a bit more. So I probably should have been a little more careful with that. Alright, and let's see what's after that. So next extreme, now they actually start to fly out to the side. I'm going to look for an extreme that's somewhere around there. So we've got that landing on 46. I might actually do the one here on 49, because I think that's when they're the furthest away from the body, or out to the side. So I'm going to take all these and delete them up to 49. And we'll go straight to 49. And that pose actually isn't bad. Let me make sure it transitions okay from. Yeah, that's not bad. So I could probably just use the animation that's already there. Alright, let's look for the next extreme, which is when they come the closest together. So it's probably going to be right around 58. Let's see. Yeah, and that is one of my blocking poses. So let's delete all these keys up to 58. So I think I just need to delete that key, or those set there. And then I'm going to try to match that pose there. So it looks like that arm's in front of the knee there, or in front of the body. And again, it's probably the pose where it's the closest towards the center of our character's body. And so I'm going to zero these out. And we'll just reset up that pose. So I'm going to bring this down. I need to bring it forward. And then inward a bit here towards the center again of our character. And let's grab these again and key those. And then I want to check the animation. I think the wrist should be facing outwards and not forwards. So let's take that controller here for the upper arm and actually rotate that. It's kind of hard to tell when your wrist doesn't follow along. Let's key that and see. There, that's better. And then there's not a whole lot of movement after this. It goes away from the body probably around 65, 67. Let's see, do we already have an extreme there? Not really. Actually, the animation for the rest of this doesn't look too bad. I think most of that gimbal lock that was happening was really right around, again, those couple steps there before the jump. I'm going to play this just to see what it looks like. That's better. I think I might push some of these poses a little bit more. So let's see. 61. I'm going to have it go back just a bit. Again, to counterpose the leg. And then on 76, I might have it come forward a little bit more. Again, for a counterpose, since the left leg's going forward. And I think that's it for the upper arm, just in terms of correcting those poses and making sure I'm avoiding gimbal lock. Now I want to go in and actually clean up the curve because it's still kind of a mess. So right now I'm just looking for things like this. Again, it's going to create that kind of waviness or choppy movement in my animation, and we're just going to smooth these tangents out. I could probably get a similar movement without those two keys there, so I'm going to go ahead and delete those. Again, if the curve is going to look similar, let me actually add those back. Let me see if it... I'm going to delete those for now. We'll come back to that. And let's see, let's just smooth this out, and then we'll keep going here. And then let's see, our Z. Oops. Oop. I think I'm going to push this a little bit further here, forward. So we're going to deviate maybe a little bit from our reference on 20. I think it's a little awkward how I think his arms come apart too soon, and I need to find where at in this before it starts to come apart. So I think it's probably somewhere around frame 41. So let me see if we can build in some hold here before those arms start swinging apart. Might actually be around 42. Let's see. Yeah, we'll key that pose just so those arms stay up in the air a little bit longer before they start to again come apart. And I think I may have pushed this extreme a little too much. Here on 49. So I'm going to bring that in just a bit. There, that's probably going to work a little better. All right, and now let's move on to the next controller. So I'm going to do the elbow. I'll need to select it, and let's unmute it. Oh, unmute all. Let's come in here and immediately just delete anything we don't need. With the elbow, I would recommend not having any value in any axis other than the one that gives you the bend, backwards and forwards. So this, your elbow probably wouldn't go in this direction. You might have a little twist, but I'm really not going to animate it a whole lot in the twist. I'm really just getting the swinging motion out of this elbow. So I might come in and just immediately delete the rotate X, and I think it's the Y. Yeah, it's the Y that gives me that backwards and forwards movement. And then I'm going to take the rotate Z and delete that as well, just so I don't accidentally get in here and start animating those things. And then I'm going to start here at frame 0, and I'm going to scrub forward in time here. And just look at these poses here. Well, let's actually clean this up real quick. So we're going to smooth out the curve. And let's see what that elbow looks like with just the curve cleaned up. That's not bad. We could probably work with what we have here and just add in our overlap. And so the overlap's just a matter of, again, just watching the upper arm. And as that upper arm goes back, we might go a few frames forward and have the elbow continue forward. And we'll key select that. And then here that upper arm goes forward. So we could probably break the elbow right around in here. Let's see, on 24, that upper arm's going, or on 25, it's going backwards. So maybe a couple frames forward, we could have the elbow continue forward. And you want to be subtle about this. We don't want to get too crazy with the exaggeration. And here it's starting to swing forward. I might bring the elbow back and break it. And let's see what's happening here. And I think right in here, that upper arm is going backwards. So I think just a couple frames forward. We'll bring that arm slightly forward, or the elbow. And here it's going forward, so this will be an opportunity to maybe go a few frames forward and break this backwards or kind of straighten it out. This might be exaggerated too much, but we'll see. And then here that arm's going backwards, so let's bring the arm, let's go a couple frames forward and bring the arm or the elbow forward. And then let's come in and clean this curve up. And that arm, I think we get too much of an extreme here. It kind of pops at the end right here. It shoots straight up, so I might come in and just reduce that exaggeration here. And then I'm going to reduce the exaggeration here on 71, just so there's less degree of movement. I really break this. I'm going to exaggerate this a little bit here. Let's see what that looks like. Smooth that out. And then let's move to the wrist. I'm going to unmute this. And again, we'll just scrub through and, well, let's clean up our curve first real quick before I get too ahead of myself. Yeah, that's not too bad there. The Y. This one's actually not bad. There's just a couple fixes here and there. All right, so that looks better. Now I'm just going to scrub through and look at my extreme keys here and make sure that we should have already built in the overlap on this wrist. And I'm just making sure it kind of matches the movement in the upper arm. So there, that arm's swinging forwards, so the wrist should go backwards. And it's coming forwards here. We might be able to push some of these poses. And so this backwards forwards movement looks like it's going to be mostly in our Y. Here, that arm is swinging up, and I think on 39 we could actually bring this wrist back in Y. So I'm going to key select that down. Now here the palm is facing the ground, and I'd like to use that as an opportunity to again make my wrist feel a little kind of flappy here. So as this arm's swinging up, I'd like to, in Z, point this hand down. I'll key select that there on 39. And then on 43, let's actually tilt this up because that arm and body is all coming down towards the ground. And again, I want this wrist to look like it's dragging behind that motion. And I'm going to delete this key here on 46. I don't think we need it. On 58, I might actually bring that wrist away from the body. Again, the arms are swinging inwards towards the body, and so I want to have the wrist swing away a little bit, again, to drag behind. And I could probably even push this a little further. And then as the arms swing away from the body, let's have the wrist pointed towards or come in, like so. And then let's start focusing on the overlap in the Y again, because I think that's really all I need for the Z. Let's see, and here on 53, that arm's coming down, so let's actually tilt this up a little bit here in Y. That arm's actually swinging backwards here, so I think on 61, the wrist should swing forwards instead of backwards. And then there, the arm's going forwards to 68, so let's bring that wrist back. Key select that. And then there, the arm continues to go forward, so let's break that wrist backwards. And then there, the arm's going back, wrist is going forward, so that pose is good. And then on 88, that's our resting pose. I might actually tilt this back just a bit more there on 88. And then let's go through and clean up our curve. See if there's any issues in the Z. And so I just see a couple problems here. I think there's a couple poses I probably pushed too much. So right there, that wrist really swings back. It's kind of creating a jarring movement. So I'm going to take these keys here and reduce their value. I'm just going to bring those down. And let's keep scrubbing forward. And then this one looks painful. Let's actually take this up. And I think I maybe exaggerated the Z too much there. And then I think in terms of the arm pose, I could probably bring this forwards a little bit. And then I think the wrist is probably a little, or the elbow is too broken here. So we'll just straighten that out. And let's see. That's better. It might still be a little too exaggerated, so I could come in through these controllers and maybe tone it down a bit, but I'm going to just sit here and spend a bunch of time finessing this. The last thing I do want to do, though, is maybe have a resting pose or kind of a settle in to a pose so that our entire body doesn't stop all on frame 88. So let's maybe give ourselves 95 frames here. We'll just go a couple frames after. And so everything ends on 88. I'm going to go forward maybe 2 frames, maybe 3. Let's do 3. And I'm going to have the upper arm go slightly forward. We'll have the elbow go forward a little bit here. And then the wrist will have go backwards. Maybe in a little bit here in Z. And we'll key select both of those. And I think we could probably do it in the root as well. Let me see. Let's go forward just a few frames. I think on 88, I probably didn't push this forward enough. I'm going to bring that root forward a little bit there on 88 and key select just the Z. And then let's go forward a few frames and push it back ever so slightly in Z. Just so there's a little bit of a subtle resting pose at the end and that we're not just completely, the entire body's not halting at the same rate. And so at this point I would just continue on with the other arm. There probably are a couple stiff movements here in this right arm I would probably still want to fix, but yeah, I'm going to stop here and then let you guys work for the rest of class time. So again, do for Monday your entire run and jump, and then you'll want to render from your main camera. So again, when you're setting up your renders, make sure you're rendering from this main camera that you set up. And you only have to render, from beginning to end, so however many frames your total animation is. So for mine, I would render from frame 0 to... I'd probably do just a few frames after that last key. I probably would do frame 0 to 95. But you only have to render from the one camera, and you'll want to do a beauty and ambient occlusion pass, just like we did with the walk cycle. So. Another, I guess, reminder, your character models, they are due not this Friday, but next Friday. And you will need those so that we can begin the rigging process. So Monday will be critique for run and jumps. Wednesday we will start talking about, I think we start talking about joints and local rotation axis. And then Friday we will, again, begin the actual rigging process. If you may have questions or would like me to see what you have, either in terms of the run and jump or your model,